Okay, because there will be people that universe will have told is coming. They're all excited already. They're all whipped up. Their psychic antennas are out, just waiting to get all of these parts to put together to form this giant new multi-billion-dollar enterprise that brings us into sci-fi world. Government won't be able to stop it. Government knows this is coming. They've been told by all of these billionaires it's coming. I know for a fact, I have to be very careful about this. Factually, I know that there are people working for hedge fund guys like BlackRock, those kind of people, right? Not employees, but subcontractors that are doing things like I used to do, predictive analytics, right? And these guys have been telling the hedge fund fellows up at that very high level about what's going to happen over these next 5 years. And those hedge fund guys are trying to push their organizations to get ahead of the curve. That's what you're picking up as people trying to get this word out there. They're the ones that are putting the pressure on Congress. They understand we've got to get out of the age of denial in order for sci-fi world to really blossom. And we're in the 2 years of that birth of sci-fi world. So in that sense, I think it's magnificent. So I'm a super optimist, right? This is just going to be so fantastic. We cannot imagine it. We can barely imagine the first parts of it.
That's the thing. It's such a jump for people. And that's why I love your term hyper novelty. Because
right.
It is getting weirder and weirder every day, not just from what people are seeing in the news, but and they're not seeing, there's a lot of frustration with it's the seemingly slowness of the release of the things that many people who are awake have been waiting for a long time. I get so fed up of people saying, "Oh, the med beds will be here next week." I'm like, "Yeah, but what are you doing today?" Because I think,
yeah, right.
That's a spiritual test as well.
Right.
Oh, the RV is going to be released. We're all going to be billionaires next week. Well, I've been hearing people say that for years. What are you doing today? That's been my question. What God wants you to stand up and do something today, even if it's learning about how to make bread that's healthy. It's like, that's a good starting point. Make your own toothpaste, clean your water, ground yourself, simple stuff that everybody forgot about. And that's got to come back for us to be worthy of this future in many ways, I think, because
I don't think so. I don't put the characterizations of us having to be worthy or any of that, right? We are as we are. Universe is moving us. Within the universe moving humanity, I think there's something else in there that is also moving humanity. Controllers, watchers, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's there for humanity's good per se, right? Everything acts in its own interest. The watchers, the controllers have their own interest, and we're simply a tool. If we benefit, it's fine, but I don't think they care that much. But we are at that point of change, and we also have to, as you say, direct ourselves to ourselves, right? So I really like that so I'm very focused on myself. I take the time out of my day every day to do my exercises. I train my mind and my body daily, and I do armed defense daily to keep everything sharp. I'm 73 years old. I have every expectation of living another 70 years without any trouble at all. And along in that period of time, there will be new biochemical health things that will come up that will make it easier for me to live a very healthy life for those next 70 years, right? So basically, we're all going to live longer than we anticipate. We'd better get ourselves in shape to be able to do it without too much complaint and to be able to do it effectively. And this is why, again, I'm an optimist, and I like the apocalyptic optimist aspect of it, because we are at the revealing. This is the secrets revealed time that my data started showing in 1999 that was going to be just huge. So in it probably was like 2001, my data started showing the Democratic Party in the United States dying, dissolving, which we're at now, right? It also showed the massive change of humanity as an aspect of this spiritual war. It showed a new form of Christianity emerging globally. We're about to hit that. So my data sets would have 27, 28, 29, and 30 be the first part of this giant global wave of Christianity that's going to have people freaking out everywhere. I mean, like literally you'll have hundreds of Muslims in various areas converting in a day because of dreams. All different kinds of weird shit's going to be happening, right? And this is going to cause consternation in Muslim world, etc. And it's going to get really bizarre, much more so bizarre than it is now. And we're coming into this huge, we're in it now. We're not coming into it. We're in the period of chaos. We're going to have 50 years of this chaos. It has to do with the Kali Yuga and the overhang. But these first 2 years are going to be the most intense, and then it'll sort of trail off as things get better. But my data actually shows that we start seeing real progress in October of this year with some precursors in August. So if you know where to look, you'll see some very hopeful signs that in August will mature into real progress in October. And then things start really snowballing combinatorically, right? The good really starts rolling out in new waves. And this is going to be a very exciting time for people, even people that are trying to make money, because we're going to get into so many different new enterprises, so many different ways of creating value and extracting profit from that value that home businesses and that kind of thing are just going to flourish globally everywhere. People have an idea, and the next thing you know, 4 years later, they've achieved all their wealth goals and they've affected humanity with this good idea. That kind of stuff is in my data sets. I feel privileged to have lived this long to be able to actually see it, because I was reading about it for so long in the 2000s and in 2010s, right? And we're here now. We're emerging. It's really happening. So hopefully, we'll have our fake space alien invasion or real space alien invasion, and in either way, I'll hoist my pirate flag, seize one of those vessels, and off I go. And people think that I don't have a pirate flag, but I've got two of them.
Oh, I bet you've got a pirate flag. I think I might have one here somewhere. Yeah, well, that's people go, what? So fake or real? I think it's going to be possibly both. Is it? What do you think?
I think that they're here. The UFOs and stuff are here. They're going to probably have to fake up an invasion to try and control us and this kind of thing. If they go to that trouble, it may be that Trump is short-circuiting that now. There was some thinking that they were going to roll this out and cause everybody to freak out ahead of the midterms here in the U.S. in order to try and save the Democratic Party. I don't think it'll work, and I think that the push to get the UFO information out ahead of the midterms kind of like flattens that balloon ahead of it getting there. It won't go with a pop. But I do think that there's aspects of, okay, so there are individuals that have a very limited understanding of spirituality. This limited understanding, and we see it throughout humanity, devolves into theology. Okay, so you've got like evangelical Zionistic Christians. That's all theology. It has nothing to do with spirit. It doesn't even really have that much to do with religion. And we have these guys, the extremist Muslims, all of these kind of people are theologically bound. These guys are going to get a big comeuppance, a big upset over these next few years. I'm of the opinion that some of the stuff I'd seen in the data suggests that they're going to that there's going to be acting out, really is the best way to talk about it, right? The frustrations that these minds have will make them insist that that's not the reality, and that they will try and force their version of reality on the rest of us in these actions. I think those are the guys that are going to be doing the fake alien invasion, okay? Because they want you to think of the aliens as demons. And they don't understand even demonology. They've never looked at the gnosis. They've never understood the layers of creation, any of this stuff. And they're just thinking of demons in like the Walt Disney kind of an idea, the cartoon version. But they're going to try and impress that on us, and that's where the fake alien invasion will come from. I don't expect it to be successful. No. I'm not sure that they'll even be able to get it off the ground, because they're anticipating killing maybe 100,000 Americans in this invasion, killing or damaging that many in order to get the emotional oomph. So one of the things, just as an aside, one of the things that I learned in my years of programming and the ALTA reports, the asymmetric linguistic trend analysis, is that there are emotional thresholds, and that you have an emotional threshold. And at some point it causes you to take an action because you can't stand the emotional aspect in your brain anymore. Yeah. There's also collective at that level. And so that's what we're dealing with, is that they're going to reach certain thresholds and they have to express those emotions, however bizarre it may come out. And one of these bizarrenesses may be that they want to do it. Whether or not they're going to be allowed to, can facilitate facilitated this fake space alien invasion? That's the question, because there are people that are actively working against them, that understand the delusions that these guys are operating under, and are attempting to counter it. So all kinds of battles everywhere within all of our organizations, and even within our own minds.
Well, that's part of the fun. I mean, this is exactly why I told my children Father Christmas didn't exist when they were like 2 years old.
That's why they can't get the Santa virus.
No, exactly. That's what I call it, Santa virus. Oh, the Panto virus. That's what I like that one as well. Right. It's behind you. Where?
Yeah.
Oh God! Right, we're gonna have to talk about David Wilcock a little bit. Are you okay for time for a few minutes?
Oh, sure. As long as you want, Guy. As long as you want.
So I don't like the audience. I don't like giving the audience more than an hour usually, because I find that's quite. Those days of 5-hour podcasts are behind us. Nobody has got the time, but I think they'll find this interesting. But so when this happened with David, you'd had that whole experience with Corey. What's his name? Good, and then so you were very uniquely qualified to comment. And I remember when it happened, I sat back and went, I'm not commenting on this because I didn't know these guys personally. I was watching from afar, and I want to see what everybody has to say. And then you get Kerry Cassidy and people like that saying, "Shit, no, he's not gone. He's been saved by the secret space program people." And then you're going, "No, he was possessed by this narcissistic relationship with a guy that completely screwed his head up." And I had to sit back and go, "Do you know what? I think Cliff's right, because you sat and watched him on those Sunday night shows, and he was just talking utter nonsense about the
Stravati people.
Stravati people. Because I was sitting there saying to my girlfriend, I was like, this sounds like they're just screwing him and milking him, and he's doing this, and he's paying. How long has this company been going? And he got this little plastic airplane. I was like, really? I couldn't. As somebody who's been in business for 40 years, I was like, that's not the way you do it. It's a very strange way of doing it.
And exactly. And David has never been in business. That was a big flaw of his, right? He had an interesting talent set. He was good at presenting information, but he was not good at discriminating information to present. So you could easily give him information that was bullshit, and if it was presented correctly, he would think it was accurate. He was very gullible that way. And he would get behind it. He would put his emotional energy behind it. He could sell it easily. He presented the nice view of it. His books were just all positive, etc. And he had a good following. But he got into the position of believing his own stuff, right? Not knowing his own limitations. So he'd never been in business. He didn't understand how financing and loans and companies work, nor how to analyze them for an investment, So some guy talked to him, and he gave that guy nearly $2 million. Never analyzed any of it, never asked for, due diligence or any of this sort of thing. So he was just that gullible. And this is why he was easily led astray by Corey Good in that narcissistic dynamic that they had in that relationship. David had a good-sized ego. That's not a bad thing. Ego is necessary for us to not be earthworms, not be slugs or slaves. But his ego had no real world constraints on it, right? So I don't think he'd ever been in a physical fight in his life, never gotten the shit kicked out of him, never had universe come on in and readjust his mind to reality. And so he didn't have those constraints. And so his emotionality obviously got ahead of him, and he took his life. I think he did so accidentally to some extent. I think that he was actually calling the police to basically talk him out of it, to get him out of it. That's the only reason. I don't think he was one of those people that wanted to have either death by police or to be witnessed by police. It may be some of that, but nonetheless, so he ends up committing suicide. And we saw him degrade over a number of years. So that degradation had been clearly obvious. Those people that are claimed to be the cyber stalkers were the ones that really were most concerned about him. They were constantly, in their addressing of it saying, David, go and get your mental health checked out. Go and get, physical stuff checked out. You're not doing well. And his deterioration was quite visible. You could see it over these last 2 years. And I was so affected by it last year in June 5th, I contacted him trying to get him to shake it out, right? I had an idea.
You gave him a strategy, didn't you? And
correct, right. A strategy that works, right?
Yeah.
And it's proven to work.
Hands up. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't want
to know. And he couldn't. No, okay, so when I presented it to him, he listened to that part of the idea, and then instantly the reaction was that was a negative reaction that told me that his mind was being controlled, but I didn't understand to what degree at that time. But instantly it came up, oh, Corey won't agree to that. Corey will never do that. So he assumed that he had to do it with Corey, that the two of them had to do it together, that somehow they were inextricably linked. And as soon as I started bringing it up, well, Corey doesn't have to be involved, then the conversation ended less than 30 seconds later because his mind would not allow it. And it was because of that narcissistic dynamic being in place there. If you go and look at it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, examine and study the dynamic involved. It makes sense as to why people get hooked and they can't get away from them. Bear in mind, in 2025, David had in court put written material saying how he didn't want to be involved with Corey anymore. And yet constantly he's back with Corey. He'd tried to get away from Corey in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, yet he's continuing to be involved with him. Not because of the lawsuits directly, but because of that dynamic. And David ended up, I don't know how he acquired that house. It's in Nederland, Colorado. Colorado, if you've ever been to that airport, Denver airport, it is the most evil, ugly. I can't stand to get off the airplane and go into that airport, right? No. If I'm there for a delay, I'll sit in the fucking airplane as they service it. I've done that, and they were annoyed. But I wouldn't get out into that airport because I've done it too many times, and it affects me. I think there's lots of aspects of Colorado that are like that. And David was living in one. He was on the top of an 8,000-foot high mountain in this big log cabin with everything he needed, but he didn't know how to do anything. He didn't know how to work his fireplace to heat the place. He could have. He didn't know how to turn on his gen set. He had a 22 kilowatt gen set that would have powered his house. All he had to do was push one button to get it to come on, and he never knew how to do that. He, in fact, made a video of how it's not working and it's broken, and the button to start it was right there in front of him. Anyway, though, so he was incapable of managing himself at that level, and then he was isolated. And it was the isolation that allowed the mental degradation to continue at that pace, in my opinion, right? I'm not a mental health counselor or anything, but I did contact him. I could see it last year, and unfortunately it progressed.
Yeah, I felt the same last year, but I didn't know him to ring him. But I had a soft spot for him because he did a lot of great work early on.
In the early 2000s.
And then the Gaia stuff happened, and I was like, blue aliens, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a shame in this work. And then you've got, same with Kerry. She's did a lot of great interviews years ago, and I'm like, the whole secret space program thing is interesting, but I don't know where. I mean, I've seen ships, I've been visited, I've seen ships my entire life, but I'm still keeping myself. I think the whole thing's on a need to know basis, on a spiritual level. So I don't sort of say you must believe this. I say this happened to me. I'm not sure what it was,
right?
But I know it's okay. That's basically
I'm holding space open for it, right? Whatever it is, right?
And I enjoy the unfolding of the story, without. Right. And I tried to say to people, look, think for yourself. Don't question everything, including this, because it's just my story, and I think that's a big part of us. How we learn together is having those stories shared. And finding the courage to speak up when you need it, that kind of thing. But it's always sad when somebody dies, and I appreciate you sharing your viewpoint on the David situation, because there's a lot of sense in what you say, a huge amount of sense in what you say, and thanks for trying to help him. But I've been there myself. A lot of people say there were no signs of it. He said he wasn't. Well, I've known a lot of my friends have committed suicide, and it came out of the blue. Right. You would not have known that they were suicidal. They just go. They snap decision, because it's deep.
David wasn't like that. He expressed his life. So everybody that was watching him on a weekly basis, if you had any understanding, you knew where he was headed. Week after week after week, it was just continuing degradation.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, very sad though. Yeah.
Yeah, it is sad. But in terms of where all that's going, it's going to be quite quick now, isn't it? I mean,
I think that we, okay, so my data sets would suggest that we're going to be very energetic this summer, that as we get into the end of June and then really push into July, we're going to get some major changes at a society level that will further facilitate more information coming out, and it'll start becoming really combinoric, so that this will be a very, as I say, very energetic summer. And then by October, we'll start seeing some signs of progress, right? Though how that progress is going to appear will be very minimal at first, but once it's there and once it's solid, off we go. We have some real signs of this now in the sense that we're getting a movement to more sound money. And that's going to change everything here, right? The Trump dollars, however much of a joke people think they are, it's the lead into a constitutional treasury note or treasury bill, which will be money, right? Rather than a promissory note like we get from the Federal Reserve. So no American dollar is money, it's currency. And so that's going to rapidly change the nature of everything here. It'll also propel the market disruptions into a more sane way. So there's going to be market disruptions globally, as we're seeing like with the crash of the Indian stock market, right? Because of the effect of gold on their currency. That's exactly what's going on. The metals are draining the purchasing power out of the country. And they can't have that because they're so finely balanced with their huge population. China is next, and then followed by Japan, and then by Europe, and then the US. And so maybe by July something, we'll have the stock market problems here in the US, and then there will be some social changes that will emerge. In my opinion, these social changes are already planned. The Trump administration already has them ready to go, but it's just not ready to implement them because you have to have the demand in order for them to put out a new product, and that demand is going to arise from the unstable conditions that are going to occur over these next couple of months relative to the financing. And so it's going to be a very wild time that way. And then in October or so, we'll have some level of stability that will start creeping in. And maybe it'll be a case of they have to close stock markets. I don't know. Maybe they'll have to shut them down for a period of time and then they reopen them in October. That would be a sign of progress. So the data is saying that we have signs of progress at a social order by the time we get into October, and that the progress stems from something that's being done in August. And it has to take a couple of months to come into visibility or fruition. And then thereafter, it starts becoming combinoric. So the first thin edge of the wedge of sound money starts changing the whole social order in ways we cannot imagine now. Most of the kids will never grasp what has happened to their lives as this happens. And in the midst of all of that, the Cartesian paradigm collapses. So I think that goes this July. I think we will discover something, or it'll be announced, it's already known or whatever, it'll be formalized, that will basically say Cartesian space doesn't exist. Here's a much better model of our reality. And that'll start people going off. Basically, now that we're out of the age of denial, they'll go off and come up with human created versions of 0-point energy, all of this kind of thing. And then it's like, go, go, go from this point on.
You've alluded a couple of times to there being some information coming out that may change our view of what the creator is.
Yep.
What do you think? Who is it?
Okay, so what we have is the Hermetic understanding. Okay, so there we can easily state that there is an absolute and we are not it. Okay, we can easily state that the absolute behaves in certain ways and that we are not it, that there is an infinite mind out there and we are not it. We are a finite mind and we can only think to a certain degree, and we're bound by that thinking. There's going to be a new understanding, a non-theological understanding, a non-theologically tainted framework as part of our new paradigm. And so we could say there is supreme consciousness, and this is a crude way of saying it. There is supreme consciousness, and we're all little tiny containers of some of that supreme consciousness that has been tricked into believing itself separate from the rest of supreme consciousness, and it's shoved into those containers. In my way of thinking, these containers are energetic, and they're our souls, and they are given to us from life to life to life. Part of this is going to come out is this idea of eternal humans, not immortal, because each body dies, but we are eternal. And as this body I'm in now dies, I will segue into another body. And that the segueing, the transition process, is its own separate thing that we need not go into, but it happens. And I'll come out in another body carrying with it aspects of this life that I will take into that body, right? And so this kind of understanding will come out, and a lot of the theology of life will fall away. This will be most effective on those religions that are ritual bound, where they think the manipulation of matter. Oh, I can take this chicken and put my sins on it and then lop its head off, and all of my sins are somehow absolved, right? So Judaic or Talmudic understanding is going to go away. The Talmudic understanding affects Mohammedism, right? And so the idea of the 72 virgins is going to die off, right? There is no perpetual heaven where you have
who's going to break it to them?
Well, that's going to be part of this whole process. Okay, so the data sets had this weird thing, and I'm talking the data. So the longer it was in the data sets, the more it was picking it up ahead of time and watching the emotional energy build until it actually manifested. And we have yet to see a lot of the stuff that was in the Alta reports manifest. Timing issues aside, timing is just such a bitch on this. But anyway, so the data sets described a situation where there would be this what I'm calling a Christian revival. Okay, it's not really that, because it's not about any church. It has very little to do with any theocracy or any theologically applied anything over Christianity. In fact, this Christianity will eschew the Bible. They'll think the Bible is just a 300-year-old or a 500-year-old book that was written in the middle of Russia, not as portrayed, right? And so these things will fall away, and Christianity is going to take a different turn. And I can't put it together. I don't have any of the details, but I just know that we're going to have a form of Christianity that is emergent, that will have aspects of the Book of Thomas in it, and that will go to the idea that Christ was a teacher of how to manifest and how to deal with all of these energies that we find ourselves in, and was basically a master of life, attempting to teach us how to live, right? Not attempting to save our souls or any of that sort of thing, because you can't save your soul. It's eternal. It's perpetual. Yeah. And so a lot of these things will fall off. Now, when that happens, as I say, there are going to be these periods where we will have news reports of disruptions, social disruptions that will take over large areas of Muslim countries and will cause the Muslim governments to freak out, cause all kinds of people to freak out. Imams and all these people will just be spewing hate like you wouldn't believe. And it will nonetheless be a phenomenon that no one is going to be able to control or eliminate. And in the data sets, it described this as sometimes waking dreams, where people would be walking along on the street and basically be struck by an expression of the spirit, and all of a sudden their minds are not open to Islam anymore, and they're going to consider themselves to be something that they'll label Christianity, right? And so we're going to have a very much broader definition of Christianity. No Church of England, no Catholic Church restrictions, no evangelical restrictions, that kind of thing. It's going to be entirely different. In fact, it's going to cause huge disruptions within the mega churches here in the United States, because this is also going to happen to those people that are Bible thumpers and stuff. They'll have dreams.
The pastors were taken to one side last week. Is that a true story, do you think?
That is true. That is true. That's factual. Yeah.
And told to prepare their people. Those were the terminology they were using, wasn't it?
Correct. And so those instructions, in my opinion, are coming out of that group that they call the Lincoln Group or the Lincoln Project. Okay, these are the people that think aliens are demons. And that's what they're attempting to do, is to create a narrative paradigm ahead of the actual emergence of this stuff. And so maybe they actually know that 3i Atlas is colonizing Jupiter as we speak, right? And has been spewing probes all throughout our solar system. They know certainly it's not a comet. They know it's a big ship and was all of this. They're not telling us any of that. How long before any of this stuff comes out, I don't know. But they we can imply or infer, we can infer from some of their movements that they are feeling pressured by something time-wise to get this stuff out there.
Yeah.
And this pressure is most acutely being expressed by those people that see the aliens as demons. Why that should be, maybe it's just because they want to get ahead and they want to own the narrative when it comes out to try and control things. Who knows what their motivation is, but nonetheless, they'll be out there ahead of time. This is going to be just a really weird period as we get into this. It'll go for a couple of years with these episodes and we're talking, maybe we'll see headlines, on X or something that say, 1,200 Muslim people converted to Christianity overnight in this particular village. That'll be the kind of weird thing popping up. And so it's just going to be quite odd, but it won't be your papa's Christianity, right? This will be an entirely different viewpoint of the individual and that we call Christ and the relationship of Christ to an individual now and our spiritual awakening. And it's all going to be part of this ontological viewpoint, because the aliens don't believe in Christ. They don't believe in Allah or any of that, right? They understand the hermetic understanding of all of this, that we're all encapsulated parts of a giant absolute intelligence. And so we have to deal with the aliens on their level, right? Otherwise we're ants.
Yeah. It was Stuart. Did you ever read Stuart Wilde's work?
Yeah. Way back in the day.
Yeah, he was the first one that said UFOs are demons. And that's the first time I disagreed with him. I was like, Stuart, then maybe you shouldn't drink vodka with the ayahuasca next time. Because I was like,
it's too pat, too easy.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy. Yeah.
We live in a very messy, disorderly universe that's constantly changing. That's all we can count on is the never-ending event stream and the changes. And so anything that would have a solid view, a very definite view of any damn thing is rigid and is falling away. We're changing in the minute that you come up with that idea, right?
Yeah.
And demons are so limited. It's the understanding people have is so cartoonish and immature because they're not Gnostics. They've never really gotten into any of that back when. We're going to revisit all of that. All of this ancient stuff is going to come on up, and we're going to have all these weird cults emerge and all of that sort of thing that will settle out over these next 4 or 5 years.
Well, that's why I'm finding it